Hello, it's Alex, the Bookubus. February is Black History Month, so I wanted to shout out some recommendations of horror books and films by Black authors and filmmakers. This is definitely not any kind of definitive list, there are plenty more out there, but these are just a handful that I wanted to recommend. So I have 10 books and 10 films to talk about, and I'll start off with the books. So first up is Tananarive Due. She is a fantastic writer and The Good House is an excellent example of her work. This has wonderful characters, a really layered story, some supernatural and voodoo elements, and yeah, what more do you need, really? I have also read and really enjoyed The Between, which was her debut novel. This one is about a character whose dreams start to bleed into his daily life and the line between the two becomes blurred. Yeah, these are two excellent books that I really enjoyed and would highly recommend. Next is The Gilda Stories by Joelle Gomez. This is a unique vampire story about a character who escapes from slavery, and this follows her over many decades from 1850 to some time in the future. It's a really wonderfully written story and definitely one I would recommend checking out. Next up is an anthology called Dark Dreams, edited by Brandon Massey. As is generally the case with anthologies, I did find this one to be a bit of a mixed bag, but there were some stories that I really enjoyed in here, so I would still recommend it. My favourites, in fact, were the stories by Joy Copeland, Lawana Holland Moore, and D.S. Fox. And there was also a story written by Tananarive Due and Stephen Barnes, which I thought was really great too. Next up is My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is set in Nigeria and follows a woman whose sister has a bit of a thing for killing her boyfriends, but guess who has to do the cleaning up after her? I thought this one was fantastic, such a unique idea and really well written, really great characters, and I really look forward to seeing what else the author comes out with. Next, I wanted to mention a couple of books that honestly I didn't love, but that doesn't mean that you won't want to still check them out because you might really like them. One is Fledgling by Octavia Butler. This is a vampire story and is following a character who looks like a young girl but is actually a very old vampire. Unfortunately, the story of this one just didn't really work for me, but I do still want to check out more of the author's work, and if you're looking for a unique vampire story, then you might still want to give this one a go. And the other is White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. This is more your literary end of horror, and the writing style is maybe something you will really be into or not. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work for me, even though there were some elements I really liked. There is a character who has pica, so she eats things that aren't food, and there is a kind of unique haunted house element as well. I know a lot of people love this one, so I definitely wanted to give it a mention here. Okay, next up is a book I definitely loved. It is Beloved by Toni Morrison. This is about a woman who escaped from slavery, and the story follows her trying to build a life for herself after that. But there are many things from her past that she is haunted by, including an actual ghost. This one is so unique, so beautifully written. It is such a powerful story, and yeah, if you pick up only one of these books on this list, then I'd probably say go for this one. Next is The Murders of Molly Southbourne by Tade Thompson. This follows a character who, every time she bleeds, a duplicate of herself is created, and this duplicate is intent on killing her, the original Molly. This one definitely has some really interesting ideas and yeah, such a unique concept. Next up is Cirque Berserk by Jessica Guess. This is a fun 1980s slasher story set in an amusement park, and a bunch of teenagers who go exploring there and end up maybe getting killed off one by one. And last up is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. This is a twist on the Lovecraft story, The Horror at Red Hook, and this one is following a musician who takes various odd jobs to make ends meet, and one particular job leads him into some very strange territory. This one is such a fantastic read, well written, brilliant characters. It has both emotional elements and creepy elements. I definitely recommend picking this one up. Okay, now moving on to some horror films. These are either directed by a black person or feature black characters, or both. And first up is actually a 3-for-1. From the early 70s we have Blackula, directed by William Crane, Sugar Hill, directed by Paul Maslansky, and Abby, directed by William Girdler. These are all exploitation films known as blaxploitation, and of course Blackula is a vampire story. Sugar Hill is a revenge story with voodoo and zombie elements, and Abby is a riff on The Exorcist. These do touch on themes of race and racism, as well as being just fun, entertaining films to watch, so definitely recommend checking these ones out. Next up, from 1973, is Ganja and Hess, directed by Bill Gunn. And this is right at the opposite end of the horror spectrum. This is definitely more art house, and it is a really unique vampire story. It is beautiful and strange and dreamlike, and it stars Dwayne Jones, who was the lead in Night of the Living Dead. Okay, moving on to 1992 and Candyman, directed by Bernard Rose. This is based on a short story by Clive Barker and is about a student who is looking into the urban legend of the Candyman in a predominantly black neighbourhood. This is one of my favourite horror films of all time, so I definitely recommend it if you have not seen it already. And from 1995 is Tales from the Hood, directed by Rusty Cundiff. This is an anthology film, and there is a good variety within the different segments. Some are more fun and others deal with serious topics such as race and racism. I definitely recommend giving this one a watch. Next up, from 1998, is Blade, directed by Stephen Norrington. This is a vampire film and it is a very action-packed one. It is based on the comic series and is about a vampire slayer who is actually part vampire himself. I actually haven't seen this one in years, so I really need to revisit it, but I remember loving it when it came out, and I'm also looking forward to the TV show that they are basing on Blade as well, which who knows when it's coming out, but I'm curious to check it out. Next, from 2016, is The Transfiguration, directed by Michael O'Shea. This is about a teenage boy who is obsessed with vampires and actually believes that he is a vampire. It's a really interesting character study as we follow him as he is dealing with a difficult home life, and he then meets a girl who is around the same age as him who moves into the building where he lives. So they strike up a friendship, and she also has problems of her own. I don't hear enough people talk about this one. I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favourite films of the last 10 years. Also from 2016 is The Alchemist Cookbook, directed by Joel Petrakis. This is about a guy who moves out into a trailer in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, and he is performing various experiments and he ends up dabbling with some dark things. This one is very low budget, it's kind of mumblecore in style, and there are really only 2 characters in the film anyway, but they're both played by fantastic actors. Yeah, this one's just a really unique and interesting one, and definitely has some creepy moments. Next from 2017 is Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele. I couldn't not include this one on this list. I'm sure most of you have seen it already, but if for any reason you haven't, then go do so. This is about a black character who is visiting his white girlfriend's family and uncovers some sinister goings on. This one is an absolute must-watch. It is excellent with a brilliant cast and yeah, just so many great elements here. Next from 2019 is Sweetheart, directed by J.D. Dillard. This is about a woman who is washed up on a remote island and she's really just trying to survive and hope for rescue, but she soon realises that she is not alone on the island. The main character is played by Kiersey Clemons, who is absolutely wonderful, and this one is a great mix of her kind of just being by herself with no one to talk to and trying to, you know, find food and shelter, and then some really effective action scenes involving something that I won't give details on. And last up, also from 2019, is Atlantics, directed by Mati Diop. This one is maybe more horror adjacent. I think it's more of, I guess, an art house drama. It's very slow moving and very character focused, but it does have some horror elements that I think would appeal to horror fans, of course. This is set in Senegal. This is about a character who is in love with this guy, but she's actually supposed to be marrying someone else. And love and loss are definitely big themes of the story here, amongst other things. It's a really interesting one that, yeah, I don't hear too many people talk about. And I believe this one was actually the first film directed by a black woman to be played at the Cannes Film Festival. So those are just some recommendations to celebrate Black History Month. Let me know if you've read or watched any of these already, and please feel free to make some recommendations of your own. I also have another video up with recommendations for women in horror month, so please go check that one out too. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!